This is the final part of the supply and demand section. We've looked at how shifts in the supply curve and shifts in the demand curve work. And in this video, we'll put everything together. And this will be in two different parts. This video will be supply side only shifts, and the next video will be demand only shifts. So let's get into it and be sure to like and subscribe. One of the major topics in the news right now is egg prices. So let's use that for our first example. Why are egg prices so high right now is what we'll look to solve. In the supply video, we looked at supply shifting to the left or the quantity supplied decreasing, and that's what's occurring with eggs. Now, I'm not any sort of bird flu expert, I'm not a poultry economist, but if we do some quick searches, we can see that there's been over 58 million poultry affected as of January 25th, 2023. And this is from the CDC. If we look at another report from the CDC, there's been a record number of birds with avian flu this year. The CDC shows that we've surpassed the record from 2015 by over 8 million. So, moving back to our supply and demand model, this is very similar to the orange example that we used in our supply video. So there's been a large decrease in chickens due to the bird flu. So our supply curve shifts to the left. This means there's a decrease in the quantity supplied. Now, if you remember from the original supply and demand video, we always want to stay at equilibrium. And the original equilibrium was this part right here, where the supply curve and demand curve meet. In our supply video, we only showed what happened to a change in quantity. In this example, quantity decreases, but since we want to be at equilibrium, price also shifts in this scenario. And our new equilibrium is up here. So like our supply video, our quantity supplied decreases, but our price increases. So let me go ahead and plot out the new price and quantity. So our new quantity is here, and our new price is going to be here. And let me label these, and I'm going to label them Q1 and P1. So like we said, our quantity decreases, which we've seen before, but in this case, our price increases. So our supply curve, I'm going to label this supply 1, and this is just going to be our original supply line here. So our supply curve shifts to the left, or decrease in quantity supplied, and our new equilibrium is up here with a higher price. So going back to our egg example, we had a quantity supply decrease from the bird flu, and that results in an increase in our price. And that's the final part to understanding how supply and demand work. And we need to ask ourselves, what does this do to demand? And this is our demand curve right here. And if you remember, if price increases, the quantity demanded for a good decreases. So some people, they may have stopped buying eggs altogether because of the higher price. Others may be purchasing fewer eggs. But overall, the quantity demanded decreases. So before we move on, let's think about what steps we need to take to go through to figure out what's going on. And these are what I ask as I'm working through these types of problems. So on an exam or when you're reading a news article or whatever situation you're in, these are what I like to go through. So the first thing I like to do is it supply or is it demand that's changing? And in this example, supply is changing. The second question is is it an increase or a decrease? And in this case, supply is decreasing. And the third part is after the shift, where is the new equilibrium, quantity, and price? And you may not have exact values, but you should know that, at least in this case, quantity decreased and price increased. So quantity is lower now and price is higher, and equilibrium shifted up to the left. So again, you don't have to have an exact price or an exact quantity in these scenarios, but just have an idea of where they are, and maybe you can maybe even map it out on a model or something like that. The fourth one is what happens to demand and supply. So in this scenario, supply was the one that changed. So what happened to demand in this case? And like we said, demand, the quantity, or the because the price is higher, the quantity demanded decreased. Okay, so that fourth part is you're looking at the other curve and you're saying, how is that affected now? Now let's take these steps and let's use them for a rightward shift. So it used to be if you needed a document for your job, you'd have to walk down the hall or across the street, even, or you might have even had to drive to a different location to get that document. And that would take a lot of time. Eventually, we could fax documents. So if a customer needed an order, they could send over, or you could send something over to them, and that saved time. But it still had issues. If we look at today, now we have email and we have smartphones, so you can message someone and they can email the document in a file. In some cases, it is literally faster to message someone and have them send a file over than walk to their desk and ask them to send it. This saves a ton of time. It saves more time than when we used fax machines, and it obviously saves way more time than if you had to call somebody up and drive to their business and grab a document from them. So let's take a look at this change in technology and see how it's shifted supply over time. So email saves time, and this means that companies can produce more of their good. The quantity supplied increases, and in our model, this is going to be a rightward shift in the supply curve. So let me label these really quick. This is just going to be our S, our original supply, and this is going to be S1 for our change. So it changed, it shifted to the right. And if we go back to those steps to solve that we used, these steps right here, we've done steps 1 and 2. So we know it's supply and we know it's an increase or a leftward shift. So now let's look at the new equilibrium, quantity, and price. So if we look at our equilibrium, it's where the red and the black lines cross each other. So that our new quantity is going to be here. And our new price is going to be here. So I'll mark this new spot as our P1. That's a little bit off, but that's okay. And then this spot down here is our Q1. And this is our new quantity and price. So now we've figured out step 3. So our last step is to look and see how this affects demand. And it makes sense. If you remember from our demand video, quantity is increasing and quantity and price have a negative relationship with demand. So our price is decreasing. Quantity increases, price decreases. And that's it. We've seen how supply increases and decreases, and how that affects price and quantity, and how demand changes because of these increases and decreases. Now, remember, as you work through these things, follow those steps to solve, and it'll make things much easier. In the next video, we'll look at an increase and decrease in demand.